What's up, guys? This podcast is produced by Mindset Media and brought to you by the ETMF Foundation. Cue the intro. Welcome back, guys. Welcome to the Mindset Matters podcast. Episode is entitled Get to the Money. So we have with us here today a special guest, our Secretary and CFO, Nery Martinez. So Nery, let's start off by discussing your origin story. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Thankful that we're all in one building and finally get this on the road. But just to start off with a little bit of my background, I grew up in Dallas, Oak Cliff. At 19, I joined the Year Up program, which is a work study program. And through them, I was introduced to the finance industry. They put me at an internship at Bank of America as a data analyst. And through that, I got a little bit of experience, like a year and a half at Bank of America. And after I left the firm, I decided to go back to school. And I realized that I wasn't ready at that point in my life. So after I left school, it was like a bad semester, but it wasn't like the end of the world. It kind of felt like that at first, but after that, I went through the UPro program, which is basically Year Up Part 2. And they put me in at JP Morgan as a KYC analyst, which is Know Your Customer. So it's more like cybersecurity, more compliance, document review type work. A lot of different systems through that. And after all that, I found out that I needed a degree to get the job that I wanted, which brought me back to school.
So what made you, because you talked about the fact that you realized you weren't ready yet.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this. How do you know when you're ready?
I suppose people shouldn't wait till they're ready, of course, but I feel like I had a lot going on personally, like some family issues, some health issues in my own family. And all that put together put a really bad semester. And yeah, I took the summer off to find myself, did a little bit of traveling, spent a lot of time with family, and that brought me back to school.
Okay. So I know for me personally, you have to create space for the things that you're going to do in your life, especially if you're going to launch something that's big, if you're going to engage in something that's meaningful. So we'll talk a little bit about what made you decide to join the foundation and serve as the CFO. And when did you realize that that was a decision that you were ready to make?
So I guess I should start when I was pulled into the foundation, introduced to it. I got a call from you one day. It was like 5 p.m. You sounded very excited, and that got me excited because I know you are very intelligent, and it takes a lot to get you to, get perked up.
So when you got that call,
Mm-hmm.
what was going through your mind? Because I know how I was feeling as I was trying to put everything together, create the planning process. And I believe you were the first person that I reached out to on the board.
Right.
And so it was an early process. I remember I was going through some of the plans, what my vision was for it. I was even trying to decide what to call it.
Right.
And you were able to be a part of that conversation in the early process. So what was your thought process? What was going through your mind as you were hearing me go through those stages of planning?
So when you first introduced me to the idea, I thought, hey, this is going to be like a local thing, like a really localized partnership with the local community colleges. And then I got to see the vision, the bigger picture. I got to see how big you want to scale it, how big we want the foundation to get. And that inspired me to plan out the future in advance, long term, like 5 years, 10 years down the line. Like ever since I met you, I feel like I've been thinking more about where I want to be.
I think that's important, and I've noticed that shift in your mindset. You kind of we called this episode "Get to the Money,"
Mm.
and honestly, that's the reason for that is because that's one of your catchphrases, one of the
Right.
expressions that you used to use and you still use a lot. And
Mm.
when I hear it, it kind of makes me smile because behind behind the smile, though, there's a realization that in order for that to happen, there's a process you have to go through. What that indicates is that there's going to be hard work, there's going to be obstacles, and in order to get there to whatever you're trying to accomplish, you have to be able to strategically plan what you're going to do. You have to be able to understand that's going to take time. You got to do the research. You got to understand the landscape of the financial industry. So, what I really want to talk about next is now that you've joined the foundation, um, what is it? What does your day look like? What does your day to day look like when you're trying to figure out how to look at the financial side of the organization and how we're going to move on finances?
Mm. So the biggest thing is that we're just launching. We're just scaling it up right now. And I'm thankful that I have a team around me that can bring those numbers in because I can work with the numbers, but I feel like some of our other executive board members can more accurately gather the figures. You know, I can process them, they bring in, basically.
Yeah, and I noticed that you're good with information in general.
Mm.
So, in your role as secretary, you've always been a very detailed note taker. So, talk to me about where that came from. What made you so passionate about keeping accurate records?
Mm. That actually came from my time at Europe. I was 19 and they were putting me through the first learning phase where I basically get all the tools that I need to survive in the corporate world. And they hammered into us that you should always have a notebook and paper ready in case you have an idea or in case you hear something that, hey, I'm gonna need to know that later. I'm not gonna remember. Let me write that down. And ever since 19 years old, I've been doing that. And I've been mixing it up with like virtual and physical paper copies. And I find that physical helps a lot better. I can type faster, but I think retention wise, paper is better.
Yeah, there's something about writing it down on a piece of paper
Mm.
that triggers your ability to remember it better. But when I look at your notes, I notice the way they're structured. I notice the details. So, what is your methodology when you're trying to capture thoughts while somebody's speaking in real time? How do you capture those thoughts, write them down in an organized fashion, and structure it so that it can be looked at later and used to accomplish something?
Hmm. So if it's for learning purposes, like in class or someone's trying to teach you something, definitely writing a summary of what you learned. Basically, you don't write word for word verbatim because that would take too long. They're talking too fast. You would basically listen to what they say, summarize it in your head, and then write the shortest possible answer for you to remember that. But if you're conducting meeting minutes, then you should do the opposite. You should do verbatim so people remember what they said because the information that they give you and the way you process it won't always be the same if you write it down, not verbatim. Like if you summarize it, it's not going to make sense to whoever is reading it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know for me, when I'm taking classes, in the classes that I'm allowed to, I typically will try to record the class,
Mm.
the lecture, or whatever part of it that I need to remember,
Mm.
and I'll take detailed notes at a later time because for me, I find it difficult capturing those thoughts succinctly in real time. So, if you had to give any tips on note taking, what would you tell our audience about note taking? Just your ideology for it, and then also your process for making sure that it's accurate and quick.
Mm. So if it's for education or learning a concept, definitely write it down by hand, summarize it. But also, if you prefer to do electronic, definitely, like for example, on Apple, it's called Pages. You just put in a template if it's recurring, and you could put like all the headings in, and it'll change the date and stuff if you need to record the time too.
Okay.
But yeah, create a template, virtual template with like bullet notes or like yeah, the bullet notes and the dash. Those are cool too. Because if you press tab, it'll format it in a different way, like a subheading.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still learning how to operate certain software and getting used to using applications and computer programs. Um, in my professional career, I've always had someone in place who would do those things for me.
Right.
And so now, as I work through the school system and everything being electronically based now,
Mm.
I'm put in a position where the onus is on me to make sure that I learn how to do these things for myself. So you've got ebooks. A lot of the
Ebooks.
books are now no longer physical. I love physical books, but with the ebooks, there's access. You gotta figure out how to
Yeah.
get access. If you can't
Smart
get
books.
access, you gotta do the IT request, things of that nature.
Yeah.
You have to know how to create your login.
Tickets.
You gotta put in, yeah, all that stuff is something that I'm learning how to do firsthand. I don't have a dedicated person anymore, so I have to shift my mindset to,
Right.
all right, now you got to do these things yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because it doesn't come from a place of laziness. It's just a habit of knowing that there was somebody designated. Always had like a secretary or a personal assistant who would organize my written things. They put my schedule together. They'd book my meetings on my calendar. They would receive phone calls on my behalf and take notes. And we'd have conversation. So for me, a lot of what I do comes through conversation. My ideas are generated through conversation. My organizational structure is generated through conversation. And usually there's always been someone there to document those things. Because once I say something, a lot of times right after I say it, I don't even remember what I just said.
Right.
Because it's coming, right? I'm thinking out loud. And that,
Sparks.
yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't really plan what I'm going to say ahead of time. I'll have outlines for thoughts and stuff, but I don't really have a plan going in. But those meetings are productive when that information is able to be captured. And
Right.
that's one of the things I appreciate about you. Whenever we have a conversation, you're able to distill the thoughts and ideas that are generated during our conversations. And you promptly send notes to me. So I have a record of what was discussed. And that really helps with even me creating my vision. And so I really enjoy our meetings and conversations because of that. So
Right.
I want to mention I appreciate your skills there on the secretary side.
Thank you.
But I want to also highlight what you do financially. So we talked a little bit about the fact that you moved around. You did a couple different things in the financial industry, but I want to really dive deeper into the reason why you chose finance. Like, what is it about finance that makes you gravitate towards it?
Mm. Definitely the aspect of wages. There's a lot of growth, but at the same time, they start you off with the living wage, so you don't have to struggle once you get the full time role. You can just focus on that and not have to work two jobs or get a side hustle. Those are definitely good, but I definitely believe in living wages. Yeah. Um, on top of that, I would say the ability to grow. You're able to move up in firms a lot more than different industries. The growth aspect of it, both personal and professional. And you meet a lot of good people, a lot of ambitious, but also a lot of sincere people in finance. That's
Yeah,
what really got me into it.
that's interesting. Yeah, and I can kind of see that through your thought process and approach to things. for me, when I chose business, I'm more of an operations person.
Mm.
I work on the operational side in management, so I'm used to being able to create processes and systems, write policy and procedure that serves as a vehicle to making sure that things can happen in an orderly fashion and that everyone's able to work inside of a team structure and understand their role. However, none of that is possible without the financial side.
Right.
So that's something that I've had many conversations with finance departments, with finance executives about allocating money, trying to figure out how to move things so that we can optimize production. And every department's looking for money.
Right.
Everybody's looking for a way to increase funding. Exactly.
Capital.
So that would be my next question to you is, when it comes to fundraising, what is your thought process behind that, and how does the organization, specifically a 501c3, put you in an optimal position to be able to not only raise funds, but to allocate them and use them to drive impact in the different areas that you want to make impact?
Right. So the biggest thing in a 501c3, I believe that's what the term is that when you, so like you start off, you need this much, you need X amount of money. And then you realize that there are actually organizations that have tax write-offs and have incentives to give that money to you. And the best thing about it is that you don't have to promise a profit from that you sell something or you make something, you sell it, and then you bring in the returns and then you split it up with whoever gave you the money. You got to give it back. But instead, in the nonprofit world, those returns will be reinvested into the company to scale it larger. And then bigger funders can say, hey, we were there like on the ground floor for this. We helped put this in place. And there's definitely some pride in that.
Yeah, I think personally for me, when I was looking at how to structure the organization, because structure is important. If you don't build it correctly, then what you're trying to accomplish may be compromised because of the way you laid the foundation.
Right.
So 501c3 became an easy decision for me early on once I realized what I wanted to do, because it allows you to make the maximum impact, and it allows you to collaborate with all different types of funders and partnerships in order to make that happen.
Right.
So it really, for me, it's more about the impact that's made. I'm not really big on. I've worked inside corporations. I've served in leadership roles, and I understand how corporate business works and how cutthroat it can be, and how problematic that approach can be to things, especially when people's lives can be affected by the decisions that you make in a boardroom.
Right.
So I didn't want to be a part of the problem. I didn't want to be a part of making problems for other people. I wanted to be a part of the solution. I wanted to work on the side where you are perfectly situated to be able to fix problems, and really be like a vehicle or an avenue for funding to be able to be thrown in the direction of problems that you're passionate about solving. So that's just something that's always resonated with me. And I can see with the way your mind works, your ability to be able to identify streams of revenue, to be able to work with the numbers as we talked about, is going to be extremely valuable moving forward as we continue to scale the impact that we're making as an organization. But what I want to do now is I want to move on to our next segment, which will be, this is one of my favorite segments. It's called Tips for Tips. So ETMF's Vice President and COO will give you his tips for successful entrepreneurs.
Yo, what's up, guys? This is Tips from Tips. I am Christian Tips, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Empowerment Through Mindset Foundation. And just some quick tips for you guys. I want to talk about how you're structuring your business. So it's very important to make sure that you have a team of like-minded individuals. You want to make sure that you are all going after the same goal within your business. And so the first step that you want to have is to be able to compartmentalize your own business. So you want to be able to have a person that can work on the finances for you. You want to have a person that can help you with your planning. And you also want to have a person that can help you with marketing your business. Advertising is becoming very, very important in today's businesses. And so you want to be able to allocate a budget for flyers, or if you want to be able to have social media ads, you want to be able to have that so people can lock eyes on your business. The planning for your business is going to be vital to the success of it. Implementation plans are going to help you decide when you want to launch certain products or certain services. You want to be able to plan your goals for your business, and you also want to be able to set specific deadlines for those set goals. You also want to be able to have an implementation timeline. What this is going to allow you to do is it's going to help you see in the future when everything is going to come into play. Another thing you want to have is you want to be able to have expected outcomes. This is going to help you envision whether things are truly realistic and if they're actually achievable. And then other certain things in planning is you would want to have risk management tools, or you want to be able to have budget allocation tools, something that's going to help you plan your finances, which goes to the next department that you want to be able to have is your finance department. And with today's episode, getting to the money, I'm sure you've learned a lot about finance. Now, that is a crucial piece to everybody's business, because without money, the business doesn't run. And so you want to be able to find a way to calculate your expenses. You want to be able to find a way to project your income. All of that is important. And so if you are the CFO for your business, or if you are the financial analyst, or just somebody who's involved with the finances for an upcoming business, you want to make sure that you have all of that outlined, and that you connect with your planning team, and that you connect with your marketing team to see where the money fits in and where do we need money in certain areas. So that's it for Tips from Tips, and let's get back to the episode.
Thank you, Mr. Tips. Always a pleasure to have your section, Tips for Tips. Like I said, it's one of my favorite segments. So we're going to move on to our next segment, which is a deep dive into entrepreneurial mindsets and principles. So, Nery, we're going to pick your brain here a little bit.
Sure.
I'd like to know what are the most essential elements that an entrepreneur should focus on when they're crafting their financial plan for their organization?
Definitely the landscape. Wherever you live, see what the financial landscape is in that city or town, wherever you may be. See what the pulse is like with other local businesses. See how they're doing. Maybe get some ideas from them. You don't have to talk to the owner or anything, but you could just look at their operations, see how they function. But if you're going into business, definitely do business with people you trust, people that help inspire you and that are as driven or more driven than you. Because there's a lot of trust that needs to be there, because there's sensitive documents, and also just sharing the vision, making sure that everyone is on the same page, but also sees the bigger picture.
I like that. Yeah, and I like the way you started off with landscape, understanding the landscape, because when it comes to planning anything at all, the first thing you want to do is do your research.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of times people want to launch right into the action stage of a plan. But when you're trying to accomplish something, especially if you want it to be big, you have to do your research. Right. You'll hear terms like market rate. You'll hear terms like market demand, market trends.
Risk.
So when you're looking at risk, you'll need to understand what those things mean. You'll also need to understand how those things currently look inside of a particular industry. So there's a lot of research that's involved. And I know for you, you do a lot of reading, a lot of research about financial trends, and you do research on those things, how to create those streams of revenue. But one of the things I also want to touch on that you mentioned as well is the trust.
Right.
So that means you have to create a relationship. So in the financial world, how do you approach creating relationships with organizations or with potential funders, donors, or partnerships?
Definitely finding common ground. For example, if you're in a role and you socialize with your coworkers, you kind of get a feel of what they're into and what they value. And and with funders and investors and such. I think definitely just having a real conversation with them, being to the point and making sure that they feel heard, but also just learning about them as a person. You can see like their business ventures, but also their personal lives. And I feel like you can gain a lot from just like a 10-minute conversation about their business or your business, or maybe like a new trending business that's starting up that y'all both talk about.
Yeah, when I hear that, what that makes me think about is at the core of business is a desire to create a situation where everybody sitting at the table wins.
Hmm.
Business at its highest level is about service. It's about
Right.
making sure that value is provided.
Mm-hmm.
So when you approach a conversation, I know when I'm talking about what my vision is for the future, when I communicate the ideas surrounding the foundation, I always look to try to get people to see the vision. And that can be something that's difficult to do. It requires a lot of, you have to know something very well to be
Right.
able to explain it in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to understand who you're talking to as well.
Yeah.
So everybody receives information differently. Everybody has different experiences in life.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to put things in perspective in terms that who you're talking to will understand,
Right.
that's extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you'll use metaphors to help them appreciate the principle behind something or understand the details associated with things. And so just having that communication is extremely important. So I put a lot of work into developing my ability to communicate effectively. And I know you do as well. So why don't you share with the audience one of the things you've done recently to help improve or to help you to work on your public speaking skills, your ability to articulate that vision to other people?
I did a summer internship that really helped. It was with Big Thought, another local organization in Dallas.
Okay.
But aside from all that, I think socializing on campus. I go to UT Dallas now, so it's kind of difficult, like a shock when you go into a new space and like you don't know anyone, and all you have is just your name and your major. That's it, and you kind of have to go off and build those relationships with others. And in doing that, you'll get a lot of experience talking to different people. It's a very diverse school, and also Dallas is as a city. You could go out every night and just meet other people. Some good, some bad, but definitely trying to keep your public speaking skills sharp is very important.
Yeah, and I know we've had some conversations the past few weeks. And are there any clubs on your campus that help to improve your public speaking skills that you may have engaged with recently?
So, like I said, it was a shock going in, but now that I've acclimated to it, I found a lot of different clubs. But so far, I'm looking into Toastmasters, International Public Speaking Organization. There's a bunch more. There's entrepreneurship. There's real estate. There's like a whole cluster of them that I'm trying to join.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember when you were reaching out, we talked a little bit about Toastmasters, and I used to be a part of one in New Jersey, where I'm from. And so I was excited to hear that there was one close here.
Right.
And the first time, I got a chance to go visit the Toastmasters and uh, as a guest with you, and it was such an amazing experience. Tell our audience what that experience was like for you. What did you notice, and how did you enjoy it?
So the first thing I noticed was the structure. I saw that everyone had a different board member title, like secretary, president, vice president, number two, also a treasurer. Since it's a let me get this right, recognized students, RSO, recognized student
Organization.
organization. It's an official organization, and I was in some clubs at El Centro, where I'm a alumni, Dallas College, and I got to see behind that curtain before I got to Toastmasters, thankfully.
Yeah, and I know I enjoyed the experience there as well. Just watching how they go through their structure. 'What I really enjoy about their process, it's something that again I've engaged with earlier, and I know that you may have engaged with. Is the structure. It's something that kind of enjoyed was the way that they provide critical feedback. So at the end of every one of their meetings, they do have a conversation where they talk about how the meeting went. They talk about how each person's speech went. And it just gives you multiple opportunities as a guest. You're able to step on right from the very beginning and engage in certain table topic discussions. It gives you the practice and the opportunity to join the program just as a guest. And then as a member, you're able to sign up and give speeches. So I think it's a good function of professional development. And I think it was a good idea for you to choose to join it, because I think it's going to help a lot with that, with developing that ability, that professional development, to be able to speak and communicate ideas, thoughts, and feelings effectively, so that you can create those relationships in business and in finance, and allow for things to happen underneath the foundation's umbrella. So definitely glad that you decided to join. I'm glad that you invited me to come as well. And having joined, I use those opportunities as practice as well to continue to develop myself, because it's a constant pursuit of improvement is what you need to have in order to be effective in any environment. So just wanted to mention that, and I thought that was really a cool experience. So thank you for reaching out to me and letting me be involved with that process as well.
Of course.
So another question I have for you is, how do you determine realistic goals, and how do you track your progress towards those goals, specifically in the financial realm, and then just in general as well?
I would say my fellow board members help keep me in check. It's definitely a good starting point to check in with them, see how much they need on their projections, but also you could see how much the market rate is. I think that since we're in the early stages of this building, I believe that all of those conversations kind of happen naturally the more you spend time together with your fellow founders, trying to agree on a vision, but also I think naturally the finances will come up, definitely, with seeing what they want, how much it would cost. There's a lot of planning that goes into it.
Yeah, I think you have to create like cost breakdowns. You have to create budget justifications.
Right. But also, like, I think market rates give you a good start, so you're not just making up numbers.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of really cool, and that, again, that goes back to the research point, which is amazing. The devotion that goes into research from all of our board members. But I notice even with you, when you take the time to diligently consider your options. So whether it's determining a banking solution or situation, or whether it's trying to determine how to approach acquiring assets and then moving them in the direction of the vision for a specific program or initiative, there's a lot of attention to detail that goes into that, and there's a lot of planning. So a lot of documenting things, which again, we know you're very good at taking the notes and documenting things down. So that's always been much appreciated. And that conversation is extremely helpful. I'm glad you mentioned that, because the different conversations that we have as we're trying to figure out how to make this thing work within the framework of what's realistic, and then chart goals. I've noticed what's been effective is, as we have our regular meetings, we're delegating tasks, we're setting deadlines on those tasks, and then we're holding each other accountable, which is extremely important as members of the board, to make sure that you speak up when you see something slipping through the cracks. Sometimes those conversations can be uncomfortable if you're dealing with somebody who you're not close to or you don't recognize or know well. But I feel like the relationships that we've cultivated them naturally. And so as a result, we're able to have honest conversations with each other. So that's something that I would recommend to anybody who's trying to launch a successful initiative. I know Christian had mentioned about putting those teams together. And so that's something to identify early on. Is this someone that you communicate well with? Do you understand the person that you're talking to? Do you know what their vision is, what their goals are? And can you align those things in a way that allows you guys to be able to work effectively together, to be honest, to be upfront, to be passionate? Because those ideas Being able to have those conversations where you have opposing ideas. It's not about having an argument, but it's about having a discussion, right? You're having a discussion to try to figure out what's best for the entire organization.
But I also feel like realistically, like we're all human beings. Some of us have tempers. I feel like even if it does turn into an argument, I think knowing that it's a professional but also like a personal um, friendship that goes into it. Like I feel like you have to have a lot of trust but also admiration for who you're gonna work with.
Yeah, that has to be
Yeah.
there. I agree. And then, like, one of the ways I look at it is anytime you're in the middle of a heated conversation, we'll just call it that. Right? If you're in the middle of a heated conversation, you have to make a decision at some point, like, what's more important? Am I willing? Because sometimes you can win the argument, but you lose the person, and you have to decide what's more valuable in that moment. It's like, I don't want to lose this person because over something that's trivial,
Right.
over something that I could have taken a step back, taken a minute to reflect, and then we could have created a resolution for. So also understanding that's the value of having a deep connection with somebody is you value them to the point where no argument is worth losing that person.
Yeah, too expensive to lose. Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
So just seeing the value in people is important too.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding what they bring to the table. And so it allows us the freedom to be able to speak passionately, to have heated conversations without losing the respect for each other or without creating a situation where you alienate someone. So
Right.
I've always found that to be very nice. We don't always agree on everything,
Right.
and everybody has a different perspective in life. So it's just having that respect has been huge. So I appreciate being able to have a team around me that's mature enough to be able to have those conversations in pursuit of moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be extremely key for us going forward. So my next question for you is going to be flexibility.
Uh-huh.
So when you have a plan, you create your plan, you delegate effectively, you track your improvement towards a task. What happens when you hit a point where you realize there's a need to pivot? What is the importance of being flexible, and how do you approach building that into your planning process?
Definitely grace periods. When you put a deadline on something, you should put the soonest and the latest that you can do it. And I think that if you do that mixed with just being hungry, making sure it gets done, and making sure that your whole organization moves with speed, that you don't waste any time. There's no like dead time where y'all are just sitting around.
Yeah, I think that's important too. So setting a deadline,
Setting a deadline.
understanding realistically that there's sometimes going to be a grace period.
Yeah, definitely grace period. And also I think if you move with speed, I feel like a lot of us overestimate how much time it'll take to do something, to build something, to get something done. I think that sometimes it's a good thing if you overestimate and you do like a long term time plan. It'll be good. You might finish early.
Yeah, and so building that into the process allows for you to achieve as well. It creates opportunities for small victories, which build confidence, which builds momentum, which allows you to push forward. And momentum, when accumulated, can sometimes be unstoppable. There have been moments in my life where I've been able to experience the power of all of those small wins adding up to a strong push to the finish line. So I like that. I like that thought process there. So, last question for you on this is going to be this is for our listeners. I want them to be able to understand how can they effectively plan um, their finances when they're trying to launch an initiative and you don't have a lot financially to work with. What is the mindset that they should adopt going in when they know, hey, this is what I want to do, but I don't really have a lot of money at the time? What should be their thought process? Should they stop because they don't have money?
I would say work with what you have. Someone out there has what you want, be it like equipment or connections or just time to invest. I feel like if you take a look at what you have to start with and you see where you are versus where you need to be, it might not go as quickly as you want it to go, but you'll definitely get there. So yeah, just projected costs, projected overhead, projected fees, discretionary funds, emergency funds. I know that all adds up to a really big number, but just remember that everyone starts somewhere, and you just got to keep going, keep pushing, and make sure that you don't let all of life's obstacles stop you from building and leaving a legacy.
I like that. Yeah. And when I hear that, it kind of makes me think you start where you are, which is what you said. Use what you have to get where you're trying to go. And there's never going to be a perfect moment to start something big. Life is never going to give you that perfect moment. However, if you plan effectively, if you do your research, if you create realistic, implementable goals, you can create those small wins, those little steps towards something that add up, because every step adds up. So sometimes you're walking up a staircase. There's a million steps to get to the top. And so if you focus on the number of steps that it takes to get to the top, you may never start. But if you look at the step in front of you and you just take one step forward, and then you do that again and again and again, that momentum will eventually take you. You'll realize I'm halfway there. I'm 3/4 of the way there. Eventually, before you know it, you'll realize that you're where you want to be. But I like that mindset of starting where you are and using what you have, because that's powerful, not just for launching successful entrepreneurial ventures, but just in life in general.
Right.
Everybody starts somewhere, but you have to start if you want to get where you want to go.
And then I think it's important for people to remember that it's being preached a lot that people have to, save early in their lives, their adulthoods. They have to do this, they have to do that. But people should also remember that we're gonna hit 50, we're gonna hit 60 anyways, so we might as well start now, or else you might regret it later.
Yeah.
Not letting I'm X amount of age, like I'm this old, so why would I do this? It's already too late. My fellow peers have already done this by where I am now. But you just gotta remember that just start where you are, basically.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
That's powerful. And then just understanding that wherever you are in life, it's your life, right? You have to make whatever you're gonna make out of it. You have to make that. And so
no regrets.
Yeah, you'll never regret working hard.
Yeah.
You'll never regret trying to accomplish something meaningful. What you will regret in life is not trying. What you will regret in life is those opportunities that were missed.
Not shooting your shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's something that I really take to heart, and I love that. So that's all the time we have today. I want to thank you so much, Nery, for taking the time out of your schedule, for sharing your insights with us on finance and business strategy. Hopefully our audience was able to enjoy this. If you found this episode valuable, please make sure to smash that like button, subscribe, comment, share with your friends and family. And don't forget to check out the links in the episode description where you can learn more about ETMF Academy and where and when to engage with our lecture and workshop sessions through ETMF Academy. We look forward to joining you guys next week. So that's it for our episode today. Mindset matters. Get to the money. Only for the hardworking.